Hey everybody, hope your day is going well. We are back with another reaction. We're going to check out John Fogerty talking about the day he wrote Bad Moon Rising. I just reacted to Bad Moon Rising, killer song, and I've also listened to his book Fortunate Son, which he talked about it as well. But sometimes for something really to stick, you need to hear it a couple of times, and maybe he's filling in some extra details there. Let's jump in and listen to him talk. I love hearing about the creative process. So here we go. Oh.
Well, hi, everybody. I'm sitting here in a recording studio, Sound City, here in LA. And I thought I'd tell you the story about the day I wrote Bad Moon Rising. Well, when the second Creedence album came out in January 1969, I decided that I wanted to put the two best songs, Proud Mary and Born on the Bayou, on the same single. I did that because I always wanted to give the fans the best that I had at any time.
Right. That's another song I need to check out because he mentioned that Born in the Bayou was on that same single, and I kept that in the back of my mind. I need to check that song out. All right, another reminder. Thank you, John.
A little time went by. Those two songs started to be played on the radio. And I took another look at the album and decided there really weren't any more tracks that were worthy of being the next single. So that meant I had to get busy and come up with something new. I had been toying with the idea of Bad Moon Rising for a while. I'd actually written it into this songbook I started a few months before. You can see that the first entry there is Proud Mary. And a little down the page, I had written Bad Moon Rising. Even after that, I wrote Riverboat, which probably helped Proud Mary to get rolling. Thinking about the theme of Bad Moon Rising.
He's connecting them there.
It was inspired really by the way kids talked in those days in kind of an astrological sense. People would come up to each other and say, well, what's your sign? And the answer might be something like, well, I'm a Sagittarius with Mercury rising.
Hey, I'm a Sagittarius. Hey, come on. We're connecting right here. Yeah, that's amazing. It's always tough for me I try to, remember the fact when I check out songs that they are written in a different time and that environment and time influences your art. But a lot of the songs written then are so applicable and relevant today that you forget that easily. You have to keep reminding yourself, like, whoa, what inspired them? What was happening? And of course, I can't know everything that's happening today, so I can definitely not know everything that happened, like in 1969, for example. But I try to keep that in mind, but it's so hard when these songs are written in such a way, or the times are now written in such a way that it fits the song. I don't know. Well, if we're living in simulation, who knows? But it's so, yeah, it's crazy, man. That's so, a lot of these songs are so timeless. That's why they keep being played today, I guess. It's so good. So good.
Mercury rising. Whatever that means.
I don't know.
It was very popular at the time. And so this meant that I had to get busy writing two new songs, which were Bad Moon Rising and Lodi, to be the next single. Well, the song itself is inspired by an old black and white movie that I used to see as a kid on late night television. The movie's called The Devil and Daniel Webster, and it's a classic tale of a guy who's down on his luck, so he sells his soul to the devil in return for much good fortune here in his earthly life. He does the deal with the devil. And
this song must have been in Supernatural then, huh? Because there's so many great songs in Supernatural. Oh, hey, that is a classic, Crossroads Demons deal that he's doing there. Ooh, I need to look this film up. I love old movies.
And a terrible storm comes to the community, and all night long the man is cowering in his barn while he hears this raging storm outside. In the morning, he opens his barn door and he sees that All his neighbors'
Spoiler
crops
alert.
have been destroyed, smashed to the ground, except for his, which are untouched. Well, musically, I set the song in the key of D. And this is a big deal in my musical life, so we got to back up a little bit so I can explain how we got here. When I was a kid, my mom introduced me to folk music, and most notably Pete Seeger, who I loved. Pete would often talk about a fella that influenced him, a guy named Leadbelly, or Huddy Ledbetter. Leadbelly played a 12-string guitar tuned down to the key of D, and it sounded huge. So at Pete's concerts, he would often mention Leadbelly, and he even played 12-string tuned down himself. By the time I got in high school, I got an acoustic 12-string guitar. I put a DeArmond pickup on it so I could plug it into an amp. And I would often use this setup as a feedback device so that while I was playing another guitar, I could bring in the 12-string just feeding back and making a drone sound. It was really interesting.
Cool.
Well, it was while Susie Q was on the radio that I reconnected with this D-tuning idea. I was playing a show, and right in the middle of it, I tuned down the whole guitar to the key of D, played the one song I wanted to do with that setting, and then tuned the guitar back up to the key of E and finished my regular set. Well, I decided this was kind of awkward to have so much tuning stopping a show, and I needed a separate guitar to use for this D-tuning. So I went to a music store in San Francisco. I went through a few different models. I settled on a Gibson ES 175, just like this one.
Nice.
Because it had a big acoustic body like this, and also electric pickups. It's kind of the best of both worlds. Well, I dove right into this D-tuning idea. On that album, I wrote Proud Mary, Graveyard Train, and Bootleg using that setting. Of course, Proud Mary.
Let's go.
Left a good job in the city. Anyway, by February of that year, I was already showing the band 2 new songs using this tuning, and that would be Bad Moon Rising and Lodi. Then disaster struck. One day after rehearsing with the guys, I drove down to Fantasy's new headquarters in Oakland. This was right across from the Ducky Market. Anyway, I parked right in front on the street and went inside and had a little meeting with the folks there at Fantasy. When I came back out, I could see that someone had thrown a brick through the rear window of my car.
Dang.
When I looked inside, my new 175 and my old Tremulux Fender amp were gone. Now, we were about to record Bad Moon Rising in just a few days.
I don't think this was in his book.
This was an emergency. I needed a guitar to play on Bad Moon Rising. So I drove immediately to a store, a music store that had just opened in Albany. I walked in the front door. I said to the man, "Do you have any Les Paul guitars?" The man said, "I have one." And he pointed over to the wall. I went over there and looked at the guitar and I said, "But it's black." I had been expecting a Sunburst guitar. So I take the guitar down and I asked the man, "Do you mind if I retune the guitar?" He looks at me a little quizzically and he says, "Sure, okay." So by holding the guitar neck up to my ear, I carefully tune it down to the key of D. And then I say, "All right."
Damn, man. You know, when I need a tuner, man, to tune it down. Man, that's crazy. You know, that's how you can recognize a true artist, right? They can do it all by ear. Man,
I hear it. So he plugs me into a clean Fender amp, probably a deluxe or a twin. I strum an E chord that now comes out D. Well, it was magical. epical, really. Made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. My eyes got real big. I looked at the man and I said, I'll take it. You know, that's the opening chord on my version of Midnight Special.
That low note.
You wake up in the morning. Anyway, that little event in a music store in Albany set me off on a lifelong love of Les Paul guitars. So the first record I made
Nice.
using this new guitar and this new tuning was Bad Moon Rising. Well, I dove pretty deep into this musical setup and continued using it right away. Writing Lodi, Commotion, wrote a song for everyone, Down on the Corner, Fortunate Son, Cross-Tie Walker, Feeling Blue, and of course, Midnight Special.
I need
Well,
to check
that's
out that
the
song.
story about the day that I wrote Bad Moon Rising. I see the bad moon rising.
Man, that sounds so good. The low note, right, is I need to find out again where he just strummed that chord.
He looks at me a little quizzically and he says, I carefully tune it down to the key of D. And then I say, all right, can I hear it? So he plugs me into a clean Fender amp, probably a deluxe
I need
or
to
a
hear
twin.
this again.
I strum an E chord that now comes out D. Well, it was magical. Epic.
Oh, that was a great story. Love hearing this, these details, these behind the scenes, the little tidbits that you don't know about, the inspiration, where it comes from, the guitar getting stolen, which is of course unfortunate. That's an unfortunate son right there. But it always leads to something different, right? People just that are adaptable and creative, they find a different solution, and usually, not all the time, but it ends up working even better. So thank you to the person who stole that guitar. No. I don't promote theft. Let's go. That was a really great story. Thank you so much for checking this out with me. Hope you have a great day. Peace.